Minecraft is anything but a simple game, so in this video learn 25 things you didn't know about Minecraft. Now, as most players know, you cannot place blocks next to a cactus. If you do, the cactus will just pop off, so there's not really any way you can have a block next to them. Or is there? Well, there actually is, because if you place snow layers next to a cactus, it will not pop off, and once you put down 8 snow layers next to one, that converts into a full snow block. And even then that cactus will not pop off. You can even break the snow blocks around it and the cactus does not break off, making this basically the only way you can have a full solid block next to a cactus in all of Minecraft. The desert temple in Minecraft generates with these sort of hieroglyphic creeper carvings and other little carvings on the walls, but something you may not know is that there is a real ancient Egyptian symbol on the side of the desert temple. The symbol right here is not just a random pattern of blocks, that's actually the ancient Egyptian symbol of the Ankh, which sort of looks like a cross with a circular loop at the top, and just looking at that you can kind of see that there. So it's sort of interesting to have that in Minecraft, as I always thought this was just a random shape, but the more you look at it, the more you see this totally is the Ankh. And I really like the fact that Minecraft's desert pyramid has features in it from real-life Egyptian pyramids and also Minecraft ones. Now you can enchant a lot of different things in Minecraft, but you cannot enchant blocks in survival, right? Well, that's wrong. You actually can enchant one type of block in survival, and that is the carved pumpkin. The carved pumpkin can be enchanted with Curse of Binding as well as Curse of Vanishing, and this gives you this enchanted looking texture on the carved pumpkin, and of course when you wear it, well, now it's stuck on my head permanently unless of course I die or go into creative mode and take it off. And unfortunately when you place this block down it loses its shininess, but the actual texture of the block in our hands when we see it both ways is enchanted. But of course, like you see here, it's not like that when we place it down. It is still interesting though to have an enchanted block in Minecraft. Paintings in Minecraft often reference different things. For instance, this painting is a pixelated version of the old Donkey Kong game. There's Donkey Kong, Mario, and Princess Peach, and these are the scaffolding that Mario walks up to get the princess. But something you may not know is that these paintings over here both reference to another video game character known as Graham from the Kingdom's Quest series. You can see the character right there, and this is exactly how they appear in the game. And over here you can see another one of the character, and also one of the character lying on the ground here underneath the spider. So next time you see these paintings, you can remember these are references to other games. Starting in Minecraft 1.12, the crafting table, the furnace, and of course later the stone cutter have recipes in them. However, something interesting is that the brewing stand doesn't. This may seem like an odd fact. You see, things like furnaces and stone cutters actually have recipes to them, unlike the brewing stand, and as brewing is something even more complicated than the smelting and the stone cutting, you would think it would have its own recipe book. But as of modern Minecraft, it does not. Maybe it'll be added in a later update, but it's an interesting fact that this still has to be a rather intuitive, figured out process, whereas crafting doesn't have to be anymore, and neither does smelting or stone cutting. Let's say you've just used a sponge and it is now a wet sponge, so you have to dry it out. And you place it in the furnace to dry with a piece of coal to smelt it. If you replace in this bottom fuel slot a bucket instead of that piece of coal, then what will happen once this wet sponge dries out is this bucket will actually get water inside of it. Is rather an interesting fact of the game because it's something you wouldn't really think could happen, but it certainly can, and so you can get yourself water from wet sponges. Not that you would really need to get the water back from them, but it is an interesting fact that you can basically recycle the water from wet sponges. For instance, we could do that here, get this sponge wet again, put it back inside the furnace here, and put that bucket back in, and the water would come right back to it. It is certainly an interesting feature of the game, and probably one of the least well-known features there are. Minecarts can be placed on trapdoors, and that's not very surprising. But what is surprising is that in Java edition at least of Minecraft, you can actually open up these trapdoors, and they will still be functional, and the minecart will still ride on them because they're still suspended on the corner of the trapdoor. I am 99% sure this is a bug, but it is a very cool bug nonetheless, especially considering that there is no basically solid part of the rail, so you can literally walk up right through it like that, and you can also fall through it when it's like this. And so because of that, you could have this interesting little underneath part of a rail line. And although you cannot get up into the minecart because you're just looking at the rail hitbox, that will stay there. The reason why I think this is a bug is if you break one of these, you'll notice all of these will update and fall off, but nonetheless it could be a very cool way of even maybe having a trap in your railway, have some of the railway going over some fences, and then have all these flip down and have a piston push it. They would all fall off, and the minecart would be suspended there on a block and the player would most likely fall out. Either way, definitely an interesting thing to have these floating rails in the game. And while we're here in the jungle, an interesting fact about the jungle trees is that if you break their leaves, the chance of getting a sapling from them is lower than any other tree in the entire game. Now the original reason for this was that jungle trees were the first tree in Minecraft to have this many leaves on them, as there was no giant spruce trees at that time, and so the thought behind it was they didn't want the players to get a massive amount of jungle saplings from it. However, when the giant spruce trees were added, which oftentimes have more leaves than a jungle tree does, they never return. The jungle saplings drop right back up, meaning that the chance still of getting a sapling from a jungle tree is much lower than it is from getting it from any other tree in the game. I really hope Mojang will fix this at one point, because jungle saplings are one of my favorite items in the game. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me why you wouldn't be able to get a large amount of them just by breaking the leaves, or by the leaves decaying, as you would normally from any other type of tree. Even with the fortune enchantment on, let's say, a hoe, it only brings up the drop rate a little higher, and it doesn't really make them even as common as the other saplings are still. For instance, after breaking all these leaves, I literally got one jungle sapling, and I've often had times where I'm breaking down a jungle tree, and I don't even have enough saplings to replant it. The enchantment table has lots of interesting symbols go from the bookcases around it towards the enchantment table itself, and you may have noticed these are the same types of symbols you see on the enchantment table text here when you're trying to pick an enchantment to put on your item. What you may not know is that these symbols are actually part of an alphabet from a game called Commander Keen. They're called the Standard Galactic Alphabet, and the symbols in here, as well as the symbols from the bookshelves here, actually spell out different words, such as air, animal, ball, beast, bless, cold, creature, etc. There's a whole list of words, you can look those up if you want, but it's rather interesting, and although this text has nothing to do with what enchantment you actually get, it is an interesting mechanic of the game, especially since these symbols didn't originate from Minecraft. Exploring through the Nether fortress, you often stumble upon lava wells, but they're a little bit more interesting than you might think. You see, if we go into spectator mode, you'll notice this lava actually isn't one block. It goes lower here, and there's a singular block placed here to split the lava flow in 4 directions, and it pours all the way down here into the terrain below, making this lava well be more like a defense area for the old inhabitants of the fortress to put some sort of hot lava here that would spill down beneath the fortress and burn any enemies. It's interesting to think up why the Nether fortress generates this way, but next time you see one of these lava wells, you'll know the interesting bit of generation that's beneath it. The ancient cities in Minecraft 1.19 have in the center of them this large portal-like shape, but something you may not know is that underneath that is this part of the ancient city that right under here is a secret redstone room. And this includes all kinds of different devices that are meant to teach the player how to do redstone. You can see around here they're teaching about waterlogged blocks, they're showing the different signal strengths of things, how lectern works over here, how a target block works over here, and many other redstone things over here. And even sometimes parts of the redstone rooms teach how to use logic gates. And of course, if you break the line up here, you can actually open the door right here to be able to go out into the main part of the ancient city. Although there is a way, if you solve these puzzles correctly, to open this door naturally, which I think would be a really cool little activity to do, especially if you could get here in adventure mode. The 6 chiseled stone items in Minecraft, the chiseled nether bricks, chiseled black stone, chiseled quartz, chiseled deep slate, chiseled red sandstone, and chiseled sandstone, all have a bit of interesting lore to them. And you probably know about the chiseled sandstone with the creeper face, but the chiseled red sandstone actually has a wither carved into it. The chiseled deep slate has what sort of looks like a warden face or some other strange face on it. The chiseled quartz has an interesting eye shape on it with the sort of eye here. It's kind of my, favorite one of these because it's an eye on it, but either way, this one has blackstone, which is the snout on it. and this one is the Chiseled Nether bricks, probably the least known of all of these, which actually has the Wither Skeleton's skull face on here. So these are all interesting blocks, but it's something you may not know is that these blocks have these chiseled carvings on them with lore. Did you know that there is a 1 in 10,000 chance for the title screen of the game to say MINCERAFT instead of Minecraft? It's true. In fact, if 10,000 people watch this video or more, then at least one of you will see this title screen the next time you play the game, which would be kind of creepy if that's you. So basically, instead of saying Minecraft, the C and E are switched. Did you know that one of the fossils that can generate in the Soul Sand Valley looks like the FaZe clan logo? No, just kidding, that's not a very good fact. But did you know that if you open up an empty map in the Nether, you get this strange texture on it? Now you'd think this might just be the pattern of the Nether roof, but at closer inspection you'll see it's actually quite a strange pattern. It does fill out when you walk on it, but the little symbol that shows the way you're facing on the map does not actually work that well. It does sort of show where you are on the map, but it doesn't ever point the right way. Sometimes it'll point in one direction, sometimes it'll spin randomly. And you'll notice that that's not the look of Bedrock, as Bedrock would just be one straight texture. It's this sort of strange, randomly generated thing there. But what's interesting is if you actually fill out one of these all the way, you could use this as pretty good wallpaper, making a whole bunch of these maps and placing them on some walls. The Ocean Monument in Minecraft, populated by Guardians and the Elder Guardians, when it generates, will of course always generate in new chunks. But when this was added to the game, it could actually generate in chunks that the player had been in for 3 minutes or less. Basically, the idea behind that was if a player had been in an area for longer than that, then they'd probably place down some blocks and it was important to them, but if the player hadn't been in there for very long, then it probably wasn't very important to them. But there technically could be a scenario in which you went into a new chunk, placed down a bunch of diamonds or something valuable, and if you weren't there for more than 3 minutes, then one of these ocean monuments could generate right on top of them. And this is the only structure in Minecraft that could generate where a player had already been. Shulkers, the dangerous mob that generates in the end city, have a special ability. If they're hit by an invisibility potion, only their shell disappears, and you can just see the shulker themselves right there. It's quite an interesting feature, as normally an invisibility potion makes the entire mob disappear, but here you can see the small little creature that actually is the shulker, and also the pellets that it fires at you are almost the exact same size as the shulker itself. But unfortunately, even when it's invisible, it's just as deadly. Did you know that Minecraft can sometimes generate floating terrain? It's true. But what's a lot more interesting than that is the fact that there are two types of villagers that do not actually generate in the game that commonly and do not have a village type for them. They are the swamp villagers and the jungle villagers. I'm going to spawn in a couple villagers here, and you can see these villagers totally have a swamp specific texture. They almost look a little bit like the witch with the purple clothes, but then they have a big lily pad on their head, as well as some sort of green and mucky clothing. I actually like them quite a bit. You'll notice this one here actually has a mushroom in its back pocket. These villager textures are really nice, and hopefully they'll add a swamp village into the game eventually. But if you breed your villagers in the swamp biome, or if a village generates partially in the swamp biome and villagers naturally generate there, you can still get this cool texture. And the other type of villagers is the jungle villager, and you can see these jungle villagers have sort of like a leopard skin they're wearing with the leopard claws there and the cool pattern on it. They also sort of have some vines on them, and they seem to have some cocoa beans as pockets, as well as wearing sandals. You can also get this villager texture again the same way, by having villagers breed in this biome, or by finding a village that partially generated in the jungle. And for both these types of villagers, there's also corresponding textures for every single job. So if you ever want some villagers with a really cool look, try getting the jungle or the swamp villagers. 1.18 added the sparse jungle biome into the game that generates rather commonly, and I'm sure you've seen it on most of your 1.18 worlds. But did it actually add the sparse jungle? No, it didn't. In fact, the Sparse jungle has been in the game for a very long time. It was just called the Jungle Edge. So basically, 1.18 took the Jungle Edge biome, removed it from the game, and replaced it as the exact same biome but with a different name, and generating in a much larger area, and in a much different type of generation. So the Jungle Edge used to generate on the edge of jungle biomes to sort of transition them from a jungle to, let's say, a plains biome. But now the Jungle Edge has been turned into the Sparse jungle biome. There's a lot of areas in real life that look like this, with sort of the light covering of tropical trees with lots of land. And overall I think it's a great change, but it is an interesting thing that this biome is not new. Did you know that copper that's struck by lightning will deoxidize like it just did here? When this gets hit by a lightning bolt, as you can see right here, the copper goes from oxidized copper to a deoxidized copper. Just be aware to not be struck by lightning like I was, as lightning rods are quite dangerous, but it is cool to sort of see the fresh copper around the lightning rod. Did you know that your Minecraft player, also known as Minecraft Steve, is officially 6 foot 2 inches tall? It's quite interesting because every block in Minecraft is exactly a meter by a meter, so you can tell by that if you compare your player to what 2 blocks next to them look like. You can see that whether it's the Alex or Steve style skin, that according to Mojang it is 6 feet 2 inches tall. Woodland mansions are a fairly uncommon structure in Minecraft with a bunch of different types of rooms, but something you may not know is that there's 2 types of rooms that can generate, that actually generate with a diamond block in them. This is the first type, and you can see here it is a cube of lava surrounded by a cube of glass that is all contained in this large obsidian shape. What's kind of interesting is that if we go inside of here, you'll see that there is actually a diamond block right in the center there, and there is also a diamond block inside of this other thing, which is basically an obsidian tree with a singular diamond block in the center. So if you're ever in a woodland mansion and you see a room like this, or a room with a singular obsidian tree, know that there is a diamond block inside of there, and those 2 rooms in the woodland mansion are the only places in the entire game where a diamond block can naturally spawn. Most geodes in Minecraft look like this, with part of the geode being whole, but it mostly being cracked a bit. However, what's interesting is that 5% of geodes generate as a perfect circular geode with absolutely no crack in them, so if you find one of these perfect geodes, know that you've found something that only 5% of geodes are. Something you may not know is that while you have the blindness effect, you actually cannot sprint. I'm holding my control key right now and I'm trying to sprint, and it simply will not let me sprint while you have the blindness effect. I'm guessing this is simulating the fact that if you were actually somewhat blind, you would not be able to run really fast, as that wouldn't be a very good idea. Although I'm not actually sure. Either way, it's an interesting little feature of the game, and of course once that effect is gone, now I can sprint as normal. If you're ever raiding the end, you may notice that there is a piece of magenta glass right here, and there is also a hole in the crow's nest of the ship, and the reason for this is far more interesting than you would think. You see, before they decided to add the elytra into Minecraft, they wanted to decide what the end city loot would be, and it was going to be a beacon. So I would assume the end city would generate something like this with a beacon in the middle of it. Going through here, the beam would turn magenta, and it would also go through the top there, and you can sort of see how that actually does make sense, and that's actually the reason why that piece of magenta glass and the hole in the crow's nest is still there. And so it's sort of interesting to remember that there used to be a beacon here, and it's also sort of reflective of the fact that end gateways in Minecraft will sometimes have these magenta beams coming out of them. Although I'm definitely very glad that the end city ship generates with elytra instead of a beacon. Now you probably know that a trident will turn a creeper into a charged creeper. That is, when a creeper is struck by lightning it does that. But something you may not know is that lightning will turn villagers into witches, it will turn pigs into zombie pigmen, and it will also sometimes have turtles drop a bowl. And as an added bonus fact, lightning can actually strike from a channeling trident, even if you're throwing it in a biome that does not have it be raining there, as long as the global weather is thunder. Just like you see here, I'm having lightning strike in this snow biome. Hopefully you enjoyed these 25+ mob facts in Minecraft, and I will see you later. Goodbye!